What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another exciting Art of War review. We are here live with the Adeptus Custodes Codex. Custodes just got a brand new book, and Games Workshop sent us a copy as a little preview. So thank you, GW. Now we get to dive into these rules and review the brand new Custodes Codex for you. I have here with me today the man in gold himself, Jack Arpster.
Hello, hello. Yes, I've been playing a lot of Custodes recently, even before they got their recent balance update, and I painted up a whole new Custodes army. I played them a bunch in 9th edition. I'm super excited. I'm super pumped for Custodes. I love the army, I really do, and let's see what they got in this book.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a codex that both of us have been looking forward to. Both of us have been playing Custodes at tournaments in 10th. We both played them in 9th. We are definitely the two golden boys of the house.
It wasn't really close.
So, I'm excited to see what happens. You know, we talked kind of before we knew this book was coming that with any luck that we'd get like a little bit of like a switch off, where maybe we get like a dread host and a solar watcher before. So let's go ahead and just kick it off, right?
Let's get right into it.
But before we start reading the actual rules, we will make a note, which is that we have a battle report live with this game, with this codex right now. So by the time that this is going live, you'll be able to see not only our review of Codex Orcs, which is right here on our YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can catch that. You'll also be able to find battle reports in the War Room with the new Custodes and Orc codexes. You can get access to those by becoming a member of YouTube Gold, or you can go to our website. Click on the link in the description below, thewarroom.vhx.tv. Not only can you get a free 3-day trial if you want to check out these new books in action, that's also how you get the rest of our War Room content and access to our iOS app for free.
And if that's too much of a mouthful, which I can understand, it's going to be down in the description down below.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and start by diving right into this Custodes Codex, Jack.
Let's hop right in. Right at the top, we got our army rule, which is martial kata, same as it was before, with one change. You now can select from sustained hits and lethal hits. You do not get -1 to hit as an option. Now that's unfortunate.
That's unfortunate. Now it comes with a minor
buff, which is that you can select which kata you use. Unit to unit. It's no longer pick one for the army. It is each unit picks if they'd like sustained or lethal. Lethal was usually the third one that you took once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Sustained and -1 to hit would trade off for which one was most valuable, and unfortunately just don't have access to -1 to hit anymore.
Yeah, and minor buff is cool, thematic, and convenient, honestly, but I don't think it outweighs the loss here.
No.
So a net negative on the katas to kind of start the book off. Now this was a strong rule. It gave Custodes a lot of fight phase control. One step down. I like the little flex, but if they'd added the flex, kept the -1, that would have been awesome.
I think that would have been fine.
That would have been awesome.
But yeah, no more -1 to hit in combat, so you're a little less durable in that fight phase.
Absolutely. So a little annoying to start off, but now we're going to go ahead and roll right through the detachments, and of course all these attachments will get the kata.
So first up, we've got Talons of the Emperor, which as far as theme goes is the one I'm most excited for. My favorite Custodes list from 9th edition was a mix of a bunch of different Sisters of Silence units, characters, Custodes units, all working in symphony, and I think that's super cool, and that's the idea here. So let's go over it. So the detachment rule is Revered Companions. That means Psychana units from your army become a 6-inch aura of Feel No Pain 5+ against psychic attacks and mortal wounds for Custodes, and Custodes become a 6-inch aura of +1 to hit for Psychana.
Yeah. So that's we'll go ahead and kind of say it now. This is going to be the only detachment rule that provides mortal wound defense.
Yes.
And so you could compare this to the current index rule. Obviously, being near Psychana units is an annoying hoop to jump through. You can make it happen, but it could become a problem if you don't. And it's a 5, not a 4, but it adds Psychic.
It does add Psychic, which is an interesting way to go about it. I will have to see. I'm not optimistic that they'll add Dev Wound Protection in. I would be surprised if they did, to be honest with you.
I would as well.
Yeah, but they might. It's just not a high likelihood. I would probably rather keep the Dev Wound. Definitely rather keep the 4 up Feel No Pain against Dev Wounds and Mortal Wounds over this.
4 up to 5 up for sure.
And this is conditional, right? It's not all the time you have to have a Psychana unit near you, which is not hard to get, but as the game goes on, it might not be easy. Luckily, it's a little tough for your opponent to mortal wound or psychic attack out your Psychana. So if they have those psychic attacks, they're going to something unfun.
Yes.
Which is cool.
Yeah, because if you're going into the army that you don't need this for, because sometimes you would just play against someone who wasn't mortal wound / dev wound heavy, and it was just like, oh, anyways, we'll just kind of keep playing the game, and Custodians are fine with it.
Yeah, they're okay with that.
But if they have those things, they're going to struggle to pick out the Psychana units anyways, so...
Something to note about this book, is that if you're looking for parallels to the Shield Host, there is a detachment called Shield Host, but there is no detachment that functions the way Shield Host did. We're not going to look for the parallels, which one holds this thing. They're all going to be unique.
Yeah.
They're all different from the index.
Indeed they are. Yeah.
Okay.
So, that's the detachment role. Hit us with the enhancements.
All right, the enhancements. Radiant Mantle, Custodes model only. Every time an attack targets the bearer's unit, if the attacking model is within 12 inches, subtract 1 from the hit roll. And that's a pretty decent enhancement, to be honest with you. Yeah. It doesn't just apply to combat. If it applied to combat only, it would still be not bad. Like it'd be all right. It applies to close range shooting as well. Any meltagun's going to be -1 to hit, things like that. So I actually quite like it. I think it's a good enhancement.
Yeah, I think that's quite solid.
Yeah. Gift of Terran Artifice. Every time the bearer himself makes a melee attack, +1 to the wound roll, which is, it's all right. Custodes characters don't hit soft, right? You don't have any character that hits the same as like a lieutenant, where it's like, all right, that doesn't do any damage.
Yeah.
But you don't have any that are like world enders. All right, next up is Champion of the Imperium. You can put this on a Custodes model, and the range of the bearer's Null, Aegis, or Deadly Units ability, which is the detachment roll.
Yeah.
That goes up to 9 inches. And it's a Custodes unit, but that can actually be a Knight Centura. So that's probably where you're going to use it, honestly, is if you take a Knight Centura, you put Champion of the Imperium, and suddenly she becomes a 9-inch aura of protecting Custodes. Because I don't think a 9-inch aura +1 to hit for Vigilators is where you want to be.
Yeah, that doesn't seem necessary. Now, we don't have an updated Munitorm field manual, and as we have seen, the points in the back of the book aren't really relevant usually when these codexes come out, so we haven't really looked at that much. But this enhancement feels nice for a Knight Centura. I can't imagine spending any amount of points to buff a Vigilator.
No. And, it's not hard to get 1 or 2 Vigilator units within 6 inches, because you're probably not taking a ton. Yeah. But, like, 1 Knight Centura to buff a bunch of Custodes, 9-inch aura is not bad there. Aegis Projector. Adeptus Custodes model only, once per turn. The first time a saving throw is failed for the bearer's unit, change the damage characteristic to 0. This was so close to being really good. Unfortunately, it doesn't say once per turn you can change the damage of failed save to 0. It says the first failed save, which does feel a little needless, to be honest with you.
I actually still like it. It's not great.
I mean, you still take it.
Yeah, I think you take it. But my main thought is that the counter to this is people are going to say, oh, it's the first failed save, and they're going to point at your Warden unit, and they're going to shoot all of their bolt guns and trash guns at it. But this detachment is kind of telling you to take a lot of Sisters of Silence. And so if your opponent is pointing all their damage 1 guns to just try to break through that before the last cannon shoot, that might be sparing your Sisters a little damage. And frankly, sometimes Custodes do die to damage 1 weapons anyways.
All right, we're into the stratagems.
We are.
We've got Hunt as 1 CP. Start of your movement phase, you pick 2 Adeptus Custodes units from your army. Until the end of your turn, your units are able to shoot and or declare a charge in a turn which they fell back, and it has a restriction. And this restriction is basically the same for any of these that target 2 units, which is if you want to target 2, right, because you can target 1 or 2, if you want to target 2, one of them and only one of them can be Psychana.
Yeah.
So if you want to target 1 unit, totally fine. Target whatever unit you want on the board, no questions asked. You're good. But if you want to target 2, they have to be a Psychana unit and a Custodes unit, and they have to be within 6 inches of each other.
Yep, and it's 1 and only 1 Psychana, so theoretically you couldn't target 2 Psychana with most of this. Not that you normally will want to put at least 1 golden unit in there anyways, but that's the restriction. And that'll be the same for basically all these strats?
This is the friendship detachment, so your units do get better when they work together. So this is pretty decent. Fallback, shoot, and charge is just a good utility strat.
Yep.
glad to have it. Custodians, especially Wardens, tend to get tied up in combat. I've noticed that happens a lot. That's why Ceaseless Hunter is really good currently. So, yeah, having them be able to fall back and shoot and charge is pretty solid. We got Talons Interlocked, 1 CP. In your shooting phase, up to 2 Custodians infantry units from your army, and 1 enemy unit that is an eligible target for all of these units. Until the end of the phase, your units can only target that enemy unit, but each time a model in one of your units makes a ranged attack, improve the strength and AP of that attack by 1. This is only ranged attacks, and again, if you target 2, one of them has to be Sisters of Silence. So this is a battle tactic, but you can't make it free because it targets an enemy unit as well. So you cannot make this one free. So the previous one, Hunt is 1, not a battle tactic, can't make it free. This is impactful because shield captains on foot, Allarus armor, and on bike all can make stratagems free, only if they're battle tactics. So it's very important to note which are and which are not battle tactics.
Yes. So +1 strength and AP, pretty good shooting buff. This one actually makes a Witch Seeker squad like actually some pretty good damage output sometimes.
Yeah, and if you have a Witch Seeker squad next to a Guard squad, both of them get +1 strength, +1 AP against one specific target.
Yeah.
That is a non-zero amount of shooting damage. Empiric Severance, 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase or the fight phase, just after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1 Custodians unit from your army that was selected as the target of one or more of those attacks, and 1 friendly Anathema Psychana unit within 6 inches of that Custodians unit. Until the end of the phase, your unit has a Feel No Pain 4+ against psychic attacks and mortal wounds. Something to note here is while this does work against psychic attacks, this does not work against mortal wounds almost all the time.
That's because of how it's allocated?
Because it's of how it's triggered, yeah. Because your opponent has to declare an attack against you for you to be able to react with the stratagem, you're probably not going to get it against most mortal wound things. Grenades, not an attack. Doom Bolt, not an attack. It is a psychic attack, but it's not an attack, like you haven't selected their targets. Tank Shock, not an attack. Most of the ways you'll get mortal wounds, not an attack.
Yeah. Cool stratagem when you have it, but you're not just paying for a 4-up Feel No Pain, you're paying for a +1 to a Feel No Pain you have.
Yes.
It's like even if I hit you with a grenade and you could use a stratagem, this would on average save you half a mortal wound.
Yeah, I mean, you're not really ever going to spend a CP to save extra mortal wounds sometimes. Like, you're just not.
Yeah.
Emperor's Executioners. So start of the fight phase, you pick up to 2 Adeptus Custodes units from your army. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in one of your units targets an enemy unit that's below its starting strength, add 1 to the wound roll. And again, you can only pick 2 if one of them is a Sister of Silence unit.
Yeah.
Now this is a battle tactic, but it is 2 CP. And just to be clear, the last stratagem, also a battle tactic, but you also can't make that one free because it explicitly targets a Sister of Silence unit. So again, that's 2 battle tactics up and 2 battle tactics you cannot make free.
But this third one you can make free as long as you only target 1 unit.
Yes, if you target 1 unit with it, you can make it free, and then you get +1 to wound if your opponent's below starting strength, which is not the easiest thing in the world to get with Custodians. They don't have grenades. They have chip damage and shooting, which if it does actually chip your opponent, you'll get +1 to wound. But if it doesn't chip your opponent, right, if you wound twice and they pass their saves, then unfortunately you don't get your +1 to wound.
And this is activated at the beginning of the fight phase, but it doesn't target an enemy below starting, it's just when you attack them. So theoretically, if 2 Custodians units went in, one of them wounded, the second one had the stratagem up, then they would immediately get the +1 wound.
They would.
2 CP makes this hard to justify paying for.
Yeah, I'm making this free, or I'm not using it, really.
Free will come up a lot because so far this is the only battle tactic you can actually make free in the detachment. Which means this is definitely what I'm going to be making free if it's my only choice.
For sure. I think this could have been 1 CP. It's +1 to wound with hoops. Custodians previously had +1 to wound with hoops. And I think that would have been fine. But it is 2 CP. Luckily, it is a battle tactic, so you don't actually have to pay that, but you do have to bring a shield captain. Has to go on his unit. Like, there are restrictions here.
Absolutely. All right, so 2 more stratagems left.
Yep. Taloned Pincer, 1 CP. In your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit ends a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches, up to 2 Adeptus Custodes units from your army within 9 inches of them can make a reactive move of flat 6. And you can, again, only select 2 units if they're Psychana, and also if they're not in engaged range, obviously. This one is my pick for best stratagem in the detachment. It is really good. Like, legitimately, a lot of these other strats are like, oh, this could have been better as if they'd done this other thing that other armies get access to. This one is just a very good stratagem. It's a very good version of a reactive move, because it's not just a reactive move, it's a flat 6 reactive move, which is rare, and it's also one that can target 2 units, and that will come up a non-zero amount of the time, because these units want to be within 6 inches of each other.
And just out of curiosity, is this a battle tactic?
This one is a battle tactic.
So this is a second thing that could be made free.
Yep, as long as you don't target a Sister of Silence. Now, it's our current reading of the rules is that if you just target 1 unit with it, you can make it free.
Yep, that's how we got that confirmed already by Games Workshop regarding the Tyranid Codex.
Fantastic.
Yeah, sadly for Tyranids, but works for our Custodes here.
Yay! All right, so that is legitimately a very good strat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm excited to use that. If you have an opponent move within range of 2 units and both get to 6-inch reactive move, it's pretty nuts.
And even if it's just 1 Custodians unit, that is still a very good stratagem. Just a Custodians unit. And flat 6 is huge. Love this one. Love that we have now a second battle tactic that actually works.
Okay, next up we've got Shield of Honor. This one is an epic deed, 1 CP. Your opponent's shooting phase, just after they've selected their targets, a Psychana infantry unit from your army that was selected as the target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks, and a friendly Custodians infantry unit within 6. They have to target the Custodians unit, they cannot target the Psychana unit.
And there's a couple limitations of this, because 1, this is shooting phase only.
This would have been really good in combat.
Yeah. And then 2nd, the Custodians unit does have to be an eligible target.
That's correct? Yes.
Okay. This stratagem I think is going to be annoying to use, but the more I've thought about it, the more I think that this is actually kind of useful, because this detachment wants you to have those sisters units hanging around. And if you're playing against an army that is, because this isn't as useful for like an objective hold, which is what it sounds like it would be useful for the first time you read it.
Yeah.
But I think it is actually useful for getting something like a Vigilator unit, which they're not crazy, but they're solid and they provide the defensive buff to the army.
You're almost certainly taking some amount of them in this army.
And you can still take them with, I believe it's Alea who gives them a fight first. And then if you just have them following a Warden squad around, all of your buffs get to work, all of your rules get to work, and if they're just hanging out behind a Warden, that is going to be very difficult for your opponent to be able to shoot the Vigilators, but not the Wardens. And
so, looking at this detachment generally, it's all right. I'm not feeling particularly wowed. There isn't any raw power in this. The +1 to wound is the only powerful thing you have, and that is one too many hoops in my mind to jump through.
Yeah, I think I think because the stratagems of this attachment aren't crazy, you're going to end up using the +1 wound.
You will, for sure. Yep. You will end up using it. The reactive move is good, but there's nothing to affect the numbers, right? There's nothing to really affect damage output other than a situational melee-only strat.
Yeah. No defense against a melt-a-gun shooting a Custodian.
That is a problem, because that's what most of the damage comes from.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, a Psychic Eyeball, whole different story.
Yeah, you get hit by a Psyker, and they're not going to do as much damage as they want. But you get hit by 95% of the damage output in the game is not going to care that you have any of these defenses.
Yeah, so overall, I'm with the detachment. It's all right. There's some cool things in here. There's some good utility. None of it is jumping out to me as crazy.
No, certainly not.
If I got to a table and I asked my opponent, what does your detachment do? And they tell me this is what I do, I'd be like, okay, we got some solid rules here. Nothing eye-watering that I need to just watch out for.
No, certainly not.
I'll be careful about getting within 9 of you.
That's about it.
Yeah, the shield host. So first up, we have the detachment roll, Martial Mastery. This is that once per battle at the start of the battle round, you can use Martial Mastery for the battle round. So 1 battle round of the game, called at the start, you get the melee buffs. And this is that each time you make a model with the Kata ability, makes a melee attack, they get critical 5. So if they roll a 5+ to hit, it counts as a critical hit. So that means that for this battle round, if you chose lethal or sustained, because that's going to be the martial kata choices, you're going to get critical 5, so lethal 5s or sustained on 5s. That is quite solid. The other half of it is that you improve the AP of your melee weapons by 1, as long as you have the martial kata ability. Where the last attachment was the friendship detachment. This one is for Custodians.
It's for the lads, for sure.
Yep, because none of the Sisters of Silence units have the martial compatibility. So this does make your army hit insanely hard in combat for one battle round. This can be enough to crack some things open, but it is one battle round, and we run into a similar problem with WoG, where if you go first, you basically get knowledge of what your turn's going to be when you call it. If you go second, you call the martial mastery, and then your opponent's like, oh, so we're about to go into the turn where you kill everything in melee. Okay, I'm going to take my turn with that in mind.
Yeah, if you go second, this is not a very good rule. Like, it's all right when you pop it, but because you have to mail your opponent a postcard that reads, hi, I'm about to do my cool thing,
Yep.
they get to prepare for it, and it's a big problem. If you go first, then you essentially have the threat over your opponent of any of their turns if they end and they maybe want to start trading with you, then like you just hit them, right? If they just start trading punches, then all of a sudden you can just knock them the hell out.
Yep.
But if you go second, you have to get your intentions notarized, send it to them, and get them to okay it before you're allowed to hit them.
Yeah. And now, let's be clear. The buff you get is crazy hard hitting.
It's wild.
If
will kill
Custodians
them.
does hit you with these buffs up, it will be noticeably harder hitting than before, and Custodians already hit kind of hard.
Yes.
So not again, the hoops are a little annoying. You would want this to be command phase.
Yeah, I don't really see why it isn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's what would be ideal. As it is, it does take Custodians' damage output to another level, but there's some downsides, but at least it does credibly do something on the turn it goes.
Yes.
As long as you get into combat.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that you have to get into combat with something that you weren't already going to fold.
That is not Custodians' problem.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes they don't kill stuff, for sure. That happens.
Not
and
on this turn.
Now they will.
Not on this turn.
They just will kill those things. But, like, that's not the game-defining problem Custodians have to solve.
Yeah, this is solving problem like D on the list of things that Custodians struggle with. This is not the first problem for Custodians.
What if my game plan works perfectly, but they're a little too tough for me to kill? I think you'll figure it out from there, right? That's not the issue. I wish that there was some kind of deliverability, maybe a teleporting detachment, because Custodians are about being teleported, like teleporting and charging, stuff like that. That would have been sick, but we hit really damn hard on this turn. I don't want to take that away from it.
Indeed. So we've got the enhancements here. First up is from the Hall of Armories, which is for a shield captain only, +1 strength and damage of the bearer's melee weapons. Solid enhancement. Just a good combat enhancement. Make a shield captain hit harder. A shield captain, as discussed, hits above average hard. Now he hits this much more.
He does hit pretty hard. I'm a little sad that the bike captain still has one less attack than his friends, because he is probably the one who gets it.
Yep.
But that's a little unfortunate.
I still like it though.
I still like it too.
He do be hitting.
He's 8-2-3 on that turn. He's 8-3-3 with crit 5s and lance, and
yeah,
he does hit hard.
He is
not gonna lie. That guy with from the Hall of Armories, that dude hits.
Next up is the Castellan's Mark. So this is also shield captain only, and this is a redeploy. After both players have deployed their armies and determined who has first turn, select up to 2 Custodians, not Psychana, units and redeploy them. This is awesome. Good enhancement. I love redeploys. I love redeploys after the first turn roll.
Yes,
Which is any Custodians, not Psychana units, which is fine because those are the ones you want to redeploy anyways.
Yeah, you're not redeploying your 50-point units or whatever.
I like this enhancement.
I love it.
Yep.
Redeploy's great. Is there any rider on what units you can you redeploy Caladius?
Not Anathema Psychana.
So you redeploy Caladius with this.
You could put 2 Caladius on the line if you go second, put them back, or you could deploy 2 Wardens on the line if you go first, Caladius on the line. You've got options.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
It's pretty damn good.
That's pretty damn good.
Third is the Auric Mantle for a shield captain or blade champion, +2 to the bearer's wounds characteristics. It's perfectly solid, not insane.
If it's cheap and I have points left over,
Yep.
I will take it. Not before that, though.
Yep, it doesn't change what any of the characters do, so you'll find the points if it's there. But like Castellan's Mark, if I'm playing this detachment, I'm going out of my way to take Castellan's Mark.
Yeah.
But Auric Mantle is, I'll check at the end if there happens to be a budget for it, but I'm not that sad if it doesn't. Finally, we have the Panopta specs, which is a pretty good name.
It's a hell of a name.
I like the Panopta specs. What it does is your shield captain or blade champion gives the unit it is leading, ignores cover on their ranged weapons. This feels like it would have been better in the last detachment, if I'm being honest.
It would. I mean, I think this detachment has a shooting buff as well. So ignores cover is not the worst here. I wish that you could combine this somehow with Draxus.
Alas.
Yeah, that would have been really good on Draxus. Draxus could ignore cover on her indirect gun, but...
This feels like another Auric Mantle tier upgrade where if I happen to have the points for it, I will not be sad to put it in, but it's not so game-changing that I'm going to go out of my way for it. So now we're on to the stratagems. First up, we have Arcane Genetic Alchemy, which is... any phase after a mortal wound has been allocated to a Custodians model, not Psychana, and just any phase, you get a Forp Feel No Pain against mortal wounds.
So if that name sounds familiar, it's because it was -1 damage.
It is no longer.
It is no longer -1 damage. That's a downgrade.
Yeah, so this is going to feel bad because it used to be the index rule and now you have to pay a CP for it. I think objectively this is a good stratagem to have access to because there is no other defense against mortal wounds, but it is annoying that you're not always going to want to spend a CP because you're usually not getting hit with mortal wounds in such obvious quantities that this is saving you.
10th edition doesn't really do mortals like that. They tend to do dribs and drabs, where you take 3 here, 4 here, 2 here, 3 here, and at no point along the process is it ever really worth popping the 4 up, because, I saved a wound for a CP?
Yeah, like if someone throws a grenade at me and does 3 damage, I'm not going to spend this, I'm just going to take the 3 damage, because I might spend the CP and save a wound.
Yeah, if they throw a grenade and do 6, and they've got a vehicle right next... Well, the vehicle even happens in a different phase.
It'll be a different phase.
If they do happen to do 6 on a grenade, then I might pop it, because it's when the more wounds are allocated.
Yeah.
But like, Thousand Suns, they do a bunch of mortals, right? But they can poke Doombolt at 1 unit, and then Doombolt at a 2nd unit.
If the unit's important, it'll get me to pop the stratagem, but I'm not going to be super happy about it. So up next, we have Avenge the Fallen, which is a start of the fight phase. 1 Custodians unit that's below starting strength gets +1 attack. If you're below half strength, you get +2 attacks. This is the exact same stratagem as we had previously. In the before times when we didn't have a codex, we both, I believe, found Avenge the Fallen to be the least used of the stratagems.
I have never used it, and I don't believe you ever have.
I think I used it once when I could take like a 9 or 10 man unit.
Yep, and we actually had Avenge the Fallen in 9th edition too, and I never used it there either.
Funny enough, I used it more in 9th and 10th. It was a little better at the time.
A little weird like that, yeah. But like this was in the previous Shield Host. Yeah. This was one of the worst attachments, if not the worst, or worst strats. This
basically caps out, if we're being honest, at +5 attacks, best case scenario
for the unit entirely.
Yeah, just 1 CP, make 5 extra attacks, which is not bad, but it's not that exciting. You have to be on a real narrow break point and just have CP to spend. We're just like, screw it, we go, for that to be a relevant thing. Because if you are below half strength, you're probably a 2-man out of a 6-man.
Yes.
And that means that you are spending 1 CP for +4 attacks. Otherwise, it's +1 attack per model, which is probably just 5 models because you've lost 1.
And if you've lost 1 model, it's +5. If you lost 2 models, +4. Like, it's never getting over that amount.
So, stratagem number 3, we have Unwavering Sentinels. In the fight phase, after an enemy unit has selected its targets, 1 Custodians unit within range of an objective marker you control that was selected as the target of 1 or more of those attacks gets -1 to hit in melee. So this is where that -1 to hit kata went. It is now the Unwavering Sentinel stratagem. So it's if you're on an objective that you control, you can pop a reactive -1 to hit when you get hit in combat.
This, I believe, is the stratagem that used to be fight first.
Definitely the on the objective part. I don't remember if the name is the same or not.
I think Unwavering Sentinels was fight first.
But this is the new version, yeah.
It's the new version. It's not quite the same. So -1 to hit is nice off the kata because it was free.
Yeah.
Because it was free, it was army-wide, and if it chipped any damage off, screw it, it was free. 1 CP is not ideal. -1 to hit is one of the less valuable melee debuffs. It's not 0 value, and if your opponent doesn't have rerolls or sustained or whatever, it can help. It can. The problem is your opponent is going to say, oh, -1 to hit. Is that just all the time? You're like, well, I have to control this objective. And occasionally, a non-insignificant amount of the time, they will be able to charge in such a way that you do not control the objective, and then you don't get the -1 to hit.
And the way that controlling objectives works, they have to do it with a charge move. So it's not going to come up all the time, but sometimes your opponent will be able to just take that away from you. And where -1 to hit matters the most is into volume of good melee. Volume of good melee is usually on volume of dudes.
Yes, and that can take objectives away from you and say you can't use it.
Yeah, because like if a Hive Tyrant charges you, the Hive Tyrant is very unlikely to out-OC you. But also if you 1 CP -1 to hit a Hive Tyrant, you're saving maybe a hit, maybe not.
Yeah, you would use the Kata because it's...
Alright, next stratagem is so far my favorite name. We have Multi-Potentiality.
Ah, yes, the very nickname.
Indeed, it's a good one. In your movement phase, one Adeptus Custodes unit from your army that fell back this turn can shoot and charge. Very simple, very solid stratagem. Anytime I see a stratagem like this in one of my detachments, I'm like, oh cool, that is a thing that I generally like to have access to.
Yep, both of the detachments so far have it. The last one's a little better because it can technically target a Sister of Silence unit. Is this one a battle tactic?
It is not. So far, the Arcane Genetic Alchemy, the 4-up Fatal Pain against Mortals, was a battle tactic. That has been the only one so far.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have liked the -1 to hit or something. Free is much better than paying a CP. That's basically the only way I'd really want to use it.
I definitely would prefer that. Yeah, so multi-potentiality, cool, it's solid, we all know what it does.
It's a solid rule.
Yeah. Vigilance Eternal. Your movement phase on a Custodes unit that's battle line is within range of an objective marker you control, you can basically sticky it. So this is a change. It used to be Custodes unit, now it's Custodes battle line, which is the basically Sagittarum and guard, which practically means guard.
It practically means guard. Sagittarum are not that great. No, this is another baffling change.
Yep.
The stratagem was not too good. It was a bread and butter of the detachment before.
It was solid, yeah.
It was solid. And you would use it in 2 different ways. There were 2 ways I routinely used it. I used it a decent amount. I used it like once or twice a game on average. It was pretty good. There were 2 ways I would use it. One, I would sticky my home objective and leave Sister of Silence on it to keep Deep Strikers off, and then I would leave. The Deep Strikers come down, shoot the Sister, I still get to control the objective for at least a turn.
Yeah.
There's some lag time there where I still score points. That's pretty good. The other way is I don't have a ton of units, right? The list I took to Eurotrash is 7.
Yeah, 7 or 8.
7. So if Wardens push to an objective, clear the area, which would happen, and then have to go do something else, they would sticky the objective and leave.
Makes sense.
And that is not a thing you can do anymore.
The annoying part of this for me is that because battle line unit only basically means only guard can do it, guard are the unit that rarely leaves objectives because they're the ones that reroll wounds while they're on an objective. That part is the same now as it was in the index. And so the only unit that can practically use this is the unit that doesn't like leaving objectives because they get their buff on it. The final stratagem here is Archaeotech Munitions. And this is in your shooting phase, 1 Custodes unit from your army, as before, not Anathema. And this one gets either lethal hits or sustained hits 1 until the end of the shooting phase. You just choose one of those 2. So you basically get one of the 2 martial katas for 1 CP in shooting instead of combat. Perfectly fine. The best shooting thing you could put it on is usually either that Terminator unit or that guard unit that we mentioned before. If it's double tapping that turn, it's probably worth doing this.
It probably is. I really don't know why both detachments saw fit to give us a shooting buff as our utility tool. You can use this anytime you want. Don't jump through a hoop, chief. Here you go.
Yep.
Like, why are they both shooting buffs? I don't understand this.
There's nothing wrong with this stratagem. It's just it feels like, dang, I wasted a stratagem slot on this.
There's a fair bit of that going around.
But as looking at the detachment as a whole, this detachment feels like 1 extra hoop the detachment. I'm annoyed because the enhancements are quite solid. But enhancements do not make a detachment by themselves.
No.
The Martial Mastery rule feels like it has 1 too many hoops for the squeeze. Because if you're going to get a once a game buff, it needs to be very good. It is very good, but there is only 1 battle round, and it's a battle round on a command phase. It's just 1 extra hoop that didn't need to be there. The stratagems generally feel below average.
just across the board.
Yeah, like there's a couple utility stratagems and no, this is why I'm here stratagem.
Yeah, which you do need. For a detachment, you need a couple stratagems that incentivize you to take the detachment by being strong things you can build an army around. This doesn't have any of those.
The enhancements really push you towards shield captains, and there's only one battle tactic, and that one battle tactic is very mid.
It's super mid. It's not good at all.
Yeah.
Like, if you have a shield captain in your army for other reasons...
Because you have to for these enhancements.
Oh my god.
That's the thing, like the enhancements are all like shield captain gets Castellan's March, shield captain gets +1 strength damage.
But then the shield captain doesn't relevantly have a free strat.
Exactly, because they're... And again, this is something that we've seen in other codexes. It really feels like the battle tactic change to free stratagems was not thought about at the same time that some rules were written, and I don't know when that's going to catch up or if it will.
Well, if you're not convinced of that now, there is a detachment that will convince you that in the future.
No doubt.
Yeah, I don't see it in the shield host. Like,
no.
This is the shield host theoretically, and some of the strats reference the detachment that came before. But this is fundamentally significantly weaker than the detachment we had before. It doesn't
it's a different detachment.
It's just different. Different enhancements,
the name
different
is the
army
only thing
rule.
that's the same.
Some of the stratagems are the same. Some of the stratagems are named the same. That's about it.
Yeah. Because there is a lot less to spend your CP on, you'll actually use Avenge the Fallen more, but that's not really a great selling point. You're going to use Unwavering Sentinel, you're going to use Avenge the Fallen, but like, this detachment is confused about what it's doing. It hits you very hard in melee for one battle round. Custodians already hit hard in melee. I like a melee buff, but it being a once a game melee buff that's mildly awkward to use doesn't excite me. The enhancements are great.
Well, the best part of the detachment is the redeploy enhancement. That's kind of it.
That is definitely the best part.
It's also kind of the only part.
The melee rule is real because it does get to the point where like 2 custodians start murdering a tank.
Yeah, but I really would like an ability that triggers all 5 turns.
Yeah, honestly, I wish there was an enhancement that said for a second battle round, just his unit gets the martial mastery. Or a stratagem,
something.
1 CP command phase, 1 unit is in martial mastery.
That would be good.
A little extra synergy with the martial mastery, or if all of these stratagems did something different in the martial mastery turn.
And that would be good too.
There are too many hoops for some decent rules. Because there are rules in this detachment that are not bad, they just all have one more hoop than necessary in front of them.
It's also, you have no detachment rule, then one turn you have it, and then you go right back to not having a detachment rule again, which does suck.
So comparing the two so far, Shield Host does not feel irredeemable, but it does feel worse than the Talons of the Emperor detachment.
All right, next up we got the Null, Maiden, Vigil. I'm super excited. I love Sisters of Silence models. They were one of my favorite parts of my 9th edition list, just these little sneaky units running around with annoying rules, debuffing my opponent's units. I had a good time with them. So I think they have enough building blocks to actually make an army out of themselves if they receive like Kroot style rules. So we're going to see what they give in here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm curious to see it. You know, the Kroot detachment that we got in Tau is that first mini faction within a faction that we've seen. I'm curious to see how this one goes, and also how they do it in the future for things like Harlequins within Eldar and of that nature.
So Creeping Dread is the detachment rule. It is a 12-inch aura in your opponent's command phase. They'll have to take a battle shock check if they are within range of you, and below starting strength, or if they're a psyker.
Yes.
And if they're below half strength, they take it at -1.
Yeah, so 12 inches is actually quite large.
It is.
From experience, this is somewhat similar to the Chaos Knight detachment rule. It's just that the Chaos Knight one is always -1, and it's just below starting strength instead of a weird psyker exception. From experience as a Chaos Knight player, there are games where this is absolutely hilarious. There are also games where this never comes up. And a lot of its actual value comes off of 1, how easily you can force things below starting strength, and 2, if you have any further battle shock synergy.
Yeah, also how easily you can live within 12 inches of your opponent, which, spoiler alert, Chaos Knights, this big, do a lot better than Sisters of Silence.
That sounds accurate. I would believe you,
Yeah. Also, having it always be at -1 as opposed to not at -1 is a huge difference, because the way Battle Shock works and the bell curve of rolling 2 dice and adding up the results, if you move them 1 tick, every result lives right at that little knife's edge, right in the center of that bell curve.
Yeah.
And if you can move them 1 tick, you increase the amount they fail by a lot.
Yeah, like a solid percentage for sure.
So the Chaos Knight's ability makes them fail substantially more than the Null Maiden Vigil one.
Yep.
They also make prosecutor units battle line, a thing they just were in the old book. They already were battle line, and now they just aren't, but you can make them battle line again.
Yeah, wasn't super relevant because I don't think you're going to be taking 4 prosecutor squads outside of this attachment anyways, but still a thing that they did.
I'm not sure why, but it doesn't really
it's
matter.
not a practical nerf, it's just like you read it and you're like, oh, okay. Just a head scratcher.
It might be a little bit of a nerf in the friendship detachment because you want to take a lot, but even there you're probably taking Vigilators, Witch Seekers, Rhinos, all of that. Because the Rhinos do buff you with the friendship detachment buff, so not a big deal. It's just a little odd.
Well, let's hit the enhancements.
All right, enhancements. We got Raptor Blade. You get +1 to the attack, strength, and damage of the bearer's melee weapons. Obviously, this can only go on a Knight Centura, which takes her from a pretty not great melee combatant to a mediocre melee combatant. Yeah. It's not terrible. If it's cheap, I'll take it. It has a second part to it, which is one of the funniest riders I've ever seen.
Yeah, this one's unique.
This one's unique. It is if you are targeting a battle-shocked Psyker, or if you're in engage range of a Psyker which is battle-shocked, you get +2 to those stats instead. So this means if it's a Thursday, your opponent's name is Jim on an even year, and it's, afternoon, then you get +2.
If you're a diehard Null Maiden player, this will come up once a month, once every other month.
Something like that.
It's not going to come up very often. Now, the first half of this is a perfectly fine enhancement. And so you can ignore the fact that there's a second rider that will never matter, and just say, hey, my Knight Centurion, instead of being actively subpar at melee, is going to be, not bad.
Yeah.
And that's fine. You can do that.
But the rider is very funny.
It is very funny because of how infrequently it will actually apply.
And Psykers aren't even that common anyway, which is going to become a problem.
Infrequent.
Yeah.
So?
Enhanced Void Sheen Cloak. Each time an attack is allocated to the bearer, -1 damage. If the attack is made by a Psyker or battle-shocked model, change the damage characteristic of that attack to 1.
So, a Knight Centurion is a 4-wound model. This is, again, not a terrible enhancement, but this one is less exciting than the first because, frankly, keeping your Knight Centurion alive is not that big a deal usually if all of her friends are dead.
Who cares, right?
Yeah.
If all the Witch Seekers are dead, she's just bumming around not doing anything.
This is a funny thing where psychic weapons are literally incapable of hurting her at this point because everything is damage 1 and then also she is, kind of has that datasheet ability for psychics.
A decent amount of melee weapons off of Psykers are not psychic.
Then it doesn't matter much.
Yeah.
Then she's just a 5-wound character instead of a 4-wound character, which is a thing I would be unlikely to pay for.
Yeah, I don't really
Not particularly exciting.
Yeah. Huntress's Eye. In your command phase, pick an enemy within 12. They have to take a battle shock test.
This one I like. It's just an Earlichter rule. It is not absolutely insane or anything, but it is solid. And we're going to see in the stratagems that there is more reason to want someone battle shocked.
Yes.
And so that's kind of useful.
I think you need to have this in this kind of attachment.
Yep.
Honestly, I think you need to just bake it into the Knight Centurion datasheet, tell you to take 3 of them, and be like, please fail your battle shocks.
Honestly.
But,
yeah, I wouldn't be mad about that.
Because that's not the case, we'll take Huntress's Eye every time. This detachment needs people to be battle shocked. Just is begging them. It's like the Bernie Sanders meme.
Yeah.
Once again, I am asking you to fail a battle shock.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, and one more.
Oblivion Knight. While the bearer is leading a unit, each time a model in that unit makes an attack, +1 to hit. If the attack targeted an enemy Psyker, +1 to wound.
Got it. So not battle shock synergy.
Not battle shock synergy.
Still, as just a default, give a unit +1 to hit in melee. It's fine. This is strictly for Vigilators, let's just be clear.
Only for Vigilators. It does not matter on either of the other 2 unit types.
Yep.
Because it's either a bolt gun, and I do not care if that hits better.
Yep.
Or a flamer that automatically hits.
Yeah, so I'm not terribly excited about this for any reason. technically it's better to take this than not, and so once I'm taking a Sisters of Silence detachment, well, I don't want my Vigilators to not be good in combat. This isn't going to make them good in combat, but it's going to make them better.
It's going to make them better.
Once I'm at the point where I'm taking Sisters of Silence units, I probably am taking this enhancement.
You probably are.
But it's not telling me to go there, it's telling me what to do once I'm already there.
There's a bit of a worrying trend in this detachment where it buffs the hit roll exclusively, which is Vigilators only.
Yeah, so not super... I like the All-Seeing Eye, was it?
Huntress's Eye.
Huntress's Eye. I like that one a lot. The Blade, Oblivion Knight are both like, I'll probably take it while I'm here.
Yep. And Enhanced Void Sheen Cloak is
I honestly
pointless.
Yeah, Enhanced Void Sheen Cloak is the worst of the 4.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm actually taking 3 Knight Centurions, but again, if I'm taking this detachment, maybe I am.
If you're taking this detachment, you're taking 3 Knight Centurions.
What else am I doing, right?
You're just not happy about it.
All right. So let's see if the stratagems maybe give us a little bit of a smile.
Yep. Okay. So Desperation's price, 1 CP. Any phase just after an enemy Psyker unit has either finished using a psychic ability that targets a unit or finished making psychic attacks.
Yes.
1 Anathema Psychana unit from your army has to be within 18 of them, and then they have to take a leadership test. If they pass it, they're battle shocked.
Okay.
If they fail it, they're battle shocked, also 3 mortal wounds.
I actually like this stratagem a lot. There are so few ways to automatically battle shock someone. As a matter of fact, this is only the second that I'm aware of. The first is killing their transport.
Yes.
It does have the hoop of it has to be the right keywords for it to come up. And you know what? It's for if someone hits you with a psychic ability that targets you or a psychic attack?
If someone has finished using a psychic ability that targets a unit.
Okay.
It can be targeting themselves, it can be targeting someone else.
Got it, okay.
It doesn't matter. Or they have finished making psychic attacks.
If you have an enemy psyker that does that, this is a very good stratagem. Too many hoops?
Way too many hoops.
But when it comes up, this will be great.
Even when somebody has a psyker in the unit, they're just be like, oh, well, I'm not going to shoot with my librarian.
Yeah, that's all it is.
Yep.
Just don't shoot with the librarian. We got him.
And then you're not battle shocked.
Yes.
And even if like Magnus rocks up to you and shoots you and uses reroll hits and wounds, and then you go, haha, you're battle shocked. And be like, all right, I was done using him already. I don't.
Yeah, I still like it because there's a lot of cute utility that you can get out of battle shocking things. For example, if someone walks onto an objective and then like Magnus does that, and then you're like, cool, you're battle shocked. He's like, oh, but I had tempting target, or a Terminator does it's like a Terminator Librarian in Grey Knight. It's like arrives, does his Mortal Blast, which isn't gonna do anything against you anyways, and then like can't deploy Teleport Homer. But it's so niche.
I mean, they're just going to shoot their Stormbolters, my man. They're just not going to do their blat, and they're just going to shoot with Stormbolters until you die.
Yeah, that'll work, yeah. I love the fact that you can put an automatic battle shock down. It's probably too many hoops to be able to do it. I wish that instead this was a -1 leadership battle shock test on anything that hit you.
Anything would be dope.
But
the fact that fully half the units in the game, half the armies in the game, don't even have a Psyker.
Yeah. Means this isn't going to come up that often.
Yeah.
Unfortunate.
Yeah.
What's the next one?
Witch Hunters, 1 CP.
Okay.
Your shooting phase or the fight phase, 1 Anathema Psychana unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot or fight this phase. You can pick either lethal or sustained hits 1. Weapons equipped by... Yes, but only sometimes. Until the end of the phase, weapons equipped by models in your unit have the selected ability, but models in your unit can only target psychic units with their attacks.
Got it. So 1 CP, gain the army rule against psychers.
This was the point where I realized, oh, every rule is only going to work against psychers.
Yeah, a lot of this needed to be against battle shocked as well. Even though it's not an amazing detachment rule, I was hoping they were going to, when I first read the detachment rule, because that's the first thing I read.
Right.
I was hoping to be like, oh, they're going to use battle shock as another excuse to give the Anathema Psychana units rules that matter in most games of Warhammer. This stratagem is not following that idea, and neither were some of the other ones.
No.
Nope.
This...
I don't even know if I'm going to use this against every time I hit a Psyker.
No.
Let alone in general.
So far, just to be clear, we've gone 2 stratagems that if your opponent just does not bring a Psyker, do literally nothing. And if they do bring a Psyker, they only apply to that Psyker.
Yeah, like if I just bring like a Space Marine army that has a Phobos Librarian, and I'm like, oh, if the Phobos Librarian is just like chilling on my home objective where he doesn't get shot, you don't do anything?
Or even if he just goes forward, who cares, right?
Yeah,
like,
honestly, right.
They might get sustained hits against him. Like,
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
it's not like you brought a Psyker trap card unlocked, right? You've activated my trap card. It is,
Yeah.
I'm marginally better at dealing with that model.
Yeah. Now we've got 3 more stratagems still.
Four, but yeah.
Right? Oh, I thought that was the second one? Okay, cool. But still, the opportunity cost of if you play against a non-Psyker army, you just don't have stratagems, is going to be awkward.
Don't worry.
Hit me with the next one.
It's not going to go away.
Hit me with the next one.
Anathema Blade Mastery.
Yep.
1 Vigilator unit from your army that has not been selected to fight this phase. Until the end of the phase, each time all unit makes a melee attack, you can reroll hits. If the target of that attack is battle shocked or a Psyker, you can reroll wounds.
That is pretty cool. The mildly annoying part of this is that I was thinking to myself, oh, that's awesome. If a Psyker does a thing and you make them battle shock, now you get real wounds, but you actually had it anyways.
You actually had it anyways.
I still think 1 CP reroll hits on a unit is a generically fine stratagem for your only melee unit.
I'm not going to turn it down.
You are going to use it every time they're in combat.
I'm pretty sure this could be printed as real hits and wounds, and it would be okay. But it's not.
Yeah.
It's not. Reroll hits is fine. It's good, even.
Yep.
Because, you need to hit. There are only 2 attacks each.
You do need to hit. That's important.
2 units are going to be +1 to hit anyway.
Yep.
Because Alea and then Oblivion Knight. But, I'm not turning it down. It's just, this is not...
It's not a reason to do it.
They need to be reroll wounds base, reroll hits. Otherwise,
yeah, or at least reroll 1s to hit and wound, and then reroll all hits wounds against the targets. Give a little something, but even that wouldn't be enough, honestly.
No, I think it could just be printed reroll hits and wounds for Vigilators in combat, and it would be fine.
Yeah, because it's 1 unit.
Unit.
There's a maximum of 3 Vigilators in the army.
It's a battle tactic. There are actually 3 battle tactics in this detachment.
Fantastic.
You can't use any of them with a captain.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Hit me with the next one.
Yeah. Sidechaff Volley. In your shooting phase, a prosecutor unit from your army that's just shot. Select an enemy unit hit by 1 or more of those attacks. Till the start of your next turn, while your unit is on the battlefield, that enemy unit is prosecuted. While the unit is prosecuted, each time an Anathema Psychanimal makes an attack against that unit, +1 AP. While a Psyker or Battle Shock unit is prosecuted, they are -1 to hit.
Yeah, so prosecuted unit +1 AP. Is that shooting in combat?
For the rest of the, while they are prosecuted until the start of your next turn.
Okay. That is not the worst. Just bolt gun shooting, giving your army +1 AP. Cool. There aren't a lot of weapons to take advantage of that. You're really looking to hit someone with a bolt gun and then shoot flamers at them.
Yep.
Because the Vigilator melee is actually quite decent AP, right? Is it AP 2 or 3?
It is AP 2 Dev Wounds.
But getting into AP 3 is a relevant breakpoint, not 0 times. The -1 to hit if they're a Psycho or Battle Shocked. Could this force a Battle Shock, maybe?
No.
Then it
I
doesn't...
suppose you could shoot them below half with your bolt guns.
Yeah, well, you only need to shoot them below starting strength, and then just be within 12 of them. Because you're going to go up and rapid fire them with your bolt guns.
Obviously, they fail 1 save, then they fail their Battle Shock, and then they're -1 to hit.
That is the penalty. Yeah. Fully prosecuted. Get prosecuted on.
Yeah.
You ignore the second half of this. That's just a funny rider that's not real. This is 1 CP, bolt gun shoot, make your flamers +1 AP or your swords +1 AP.
I again think they could have just straight up printed no restrictions +1 AP, and it would not have been that good.
Yeah, well, it is +1 AP, no restrictions.
No, I'm saying they could have printed you don't have to do anything, just your unit gets +1 AP.
Oh, sure, instead of shooting the bolt gun first?
Yeah.
I think what they could have done is they could have made a battle shock part of this.
Like take a battle shock
take a battle
and
shock.
your +1 AP against them?
Yeah, like take a battle shock and the +1 AP is there anyways. If they fail the battle shock, +1 AP and +1 wound.
Yeah.
And +1 damage.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Like these units' starting point is so low that they need ridiculous buffs in order to carry an army.
Agreed. 1 more stratagem or 2 more?
2 more.
2 more. God, I'm trying to escape.
Purgation Sweep. In your shooting phase, One Witch Seeker's unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot gets +1 attacks to its torrent weapons. If they target a Psyker or Battleshock unit, add 2 to its attacks instead.
I mean, like, I'm not going to pretend that this is a great stratagem. You will probably use it if you're all Sisters of Silence, because we technically do have 15 CP that we're, like, morally obligated to spend. I suppose GW can't make us use these stratagems, but I might as well while I'm there.
I mean, grenade, they don't have grenades.
They don't have grenades.
You don't have a relevant tank shock.
It's usually okay enough to get cover that you don't need to go to ground.
Legitimately, you might be better off.
Heroicing and
No.
CP rolling.
You're probably better off tank shocking with rhinos than literally any of these stratagems.
But you're going to run out of rhinos.
You will run out of rhinos, and at some point, when you're done with all your rhino tank shocks, you'll have to spend CP on the rest of these strats.
Yeah. +1 shot, so like the best you could do is you could get the Witch Seekers +1 AP from bolt guns on an ignore cover flamer, and then give them 2 extra shots because you were shooting a battle shocked or psyker unit. Like if I need to kill an aspect warrior unit, maybe
And they're battle shocked.
No, I might just spend it for 1 CP +1 shot.
Maybe.
Well, but again,
I
wouldn't
don't have other strats.
Yeah, like I'm going to.
Yeah,
That's where
fair
I'm at.
enough.
Right? I can only Overwatch 5 times, and I can only CP reroll like
A couple
5
times.
charges.
No, tank shock them. I'm not even kidding. It is your best strat is tank shock with a rhino.
Now, hold on, there's 1 stratagem left. Hit me with the check.
Alright, Psychic Abominations, 1 CP. In your opponent's shooting phase after they pick their targets, pick a Psychana infantry unit from your army, and they gain stealth. Battle Shocked and Psyker models can only pick that unit as a target of a ranged attack if they're within 12. You want to know the big funny, the Omega funny? There are a lot of ways to force Battle Shock checks in this army. Every single one, without exception, is 12 inches. So that means if you're forcing Battle Shock checks, they will just shoot you.
Yeah. I think this could easily have been cannot be targeted by, no range restriction, and it still wouldn't be that good.
Can't be targeted by Battle Shock or Psyker models at all, even if they're in combat
just in the
with
shooting
you.
phase. Sure,
Yeah.
they can charge me.
Yeah.
Again, this sounds like it could have been cool, and then you look at these 7 hoops to jump through, and you're like, oh, this just isn't. This is stealth.
It's stealth. It's 1 CP stealth for infantry.
And that is 1 CP for stealth is a stratagem that would be perfectly mid. And you wouldn't use it often, but if the rest of your stratagems were bad, you would use it.
But
Don't want to spoil anything there.
yeah, I'll be honest. A lot of these stratagems have riders, where if you fulfill a requirement, they get better. All of them could have the requirements completely stripped out.
Yeah.
You always get the second half, and it still would not be good.
It wouldn't be enough.
It would not even be remotely enough.
Yep.
Sister of Silence need like reroll hits and wounds as a strat.
Yep.
They need +2 AP, +2 shots on flamers as a strat. Like we're talking, they need big jumps, not here's a fractional benefit to your unit, but if you jump through 5 hoops, it's a medium benefit to your unit.
Yeah. The damning part of this is that the only way to get most of these rules functional is to get people below starting strength before the battle starts, which almost exclusively requires you to use Custodes, like gold in Custodes,
Yes.
because your opponent is not going to get within 12 of you and not do anything while waiting for your only damage dealing units to activate them within 12, because you do literally no damage outside of 12 inches with this army.
Yeah.
And then you don't have any rules outside of 12, so your opponent just walks into your T3 army and says, I will do my thing first, now you can try to make me do things back in order to set up a turn where I then have to take a battle shock so the second half of your mediocre rules come online.
Yeah, like the optimal scenario for a Sisters player is the opponent hangs out 12.1 inches away. You walk up, chip a bunch of units down, and then they all fail battle shocks.
And then come in anyways.
And then they come in anyways and table you because you're not tough. Like,
You know, if they're a psychic army, they may not table you at that point.
no, but they can just charge you and beat you to death with rifle stocks.
Flamers of the Ancient are not very good here.
They'll still charge you and beat you to death with their weird gribbly hands. Like, you're not tough, you don't do damage. Psychers, even when they lose all of their abilities, are still going to just beat you up because they have better data sheets.
Yeah. Yeah, this detachment, very funny, very narrative.
Super narrative. this will never be relevant to a competitive game of 40K at any point.
No. If anyone goes positive at a GT with this detachment, I will be incredibly impressed.
Like,
Incredibly.
really impressed.
Like, I don't think I could do it.
Yeah, no. Like, we can go to a GT and go positive with
Most
armies.
Most armies, yeah.
Not this one.
I think I would be struggling to hit. Like, I think I could win like maybe I win 1 out of 5 games with this, only if my opponent is new to the game and bad.
If you convince them that when they that something will happen to them if they come at you.
I'll round 4. You're 0-3. You play against a Tzeentch demon army, and their pink horrors just spontaneously combust against this.
Do they though?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, no, this army can kill pink horrors in combat.
Are pink horrors psychers?
Yes.
Okay, then.
And their gun is a damage 1 psychic weapon without AP.
Then you probably can beat that army, yes.
Yeah, sure, that's what we're going to do.
A pink horror spam versus Sister of Silence spam?
I think Sister of Silence win that spam.
They do, I don't think they ever kill a single unit of pink horrors.
No, the Flamer.
Does it?
Yeah,
Does it?
plus 20 shots.
The 10-man? What are we, all right, hold on. What are we even talking about here?
That's what I'm doing.
What are we even talking about here?
That's what we're doing.
Sure, that would probably work. This detachment is useless. It's just useless. It is gated behind, there's a bunch of units that need severe help in order to carry a detachment by themselves. This has deeply flawed rules, and then if you jump through 15 hoops, you get less flawed rules for your army that needed croup detachment level rules.
I'll be real honest. I don't think any of us were expecting the All Sisters of Silence detachment in the Custodes book to actually be relevant. I certainly was not. I was expecting this to be similar to the croup detachment with less datasheet variety. And you know what? It is like that with slightly worse rules, and that was a croup detachment. I know the croup detachment has better rules than this by a margin.
If legitimately Sister of Silence, if they had gotten croup detachment level rules, would probably be a relevant army. Not even kidding. But they just didn't.
Yeah.
They got worse rules than the Custodians get.
And because this detachment gives literally 0 buffs to the things that do damage, very minimal ways to make your non-damage dealing units do damage, the only way to make this detachment work is to take as much gold as possible, at which point you're strictly better as any other detachment. As far as I'm concerned, this is probably the worst detachment in the game at the moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can't think of one worse.
No.
It is what it is.
It doesn't function unless it's Tuesday in March. Like your opponent's name is Tony, and it's an even-numbered year. That's it.
Tony's wearing a wizard hat. Like
he better be, because if he's not wearing a wizard hat, he just punches you in the mouth.
Hate when that happens. All right, we have 1 detachment left.
We do.
May I?
You certainly may.
All right, so we have the final detachment, the Auric Champions. The detachment rule here is assemblage of might. At the start of your command phase, select 1 unit from your opponent's army, any unit. Until the start of your next command phase, each time an Adeptus Custodes character model from your army makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. And here's the important part. Custodes character model, not unit, model. That is unfortunately very important because it means that a character unit of shield captain and 5 dudes, 1 of the 6 models gets the +1 wound.
It's a big deal. Can I tell a brief story?
Feel free.
So when we first got these rules, we both read over them separately, and then we compared notes, basically. And I was like, yeah, I think the detachment rule for Auric Champions is pretty bad. John's like, oh, I thought that detachment rule was really good. What's going on here? I'm like, really? It's just for character models. And John's like, no, surely not. Surely it's for character units. Nope. Character models.
Yeah, I thought this was going to be like the Deathwing detachment.
An understandable mistake to make. A very easy mistake to make, and one probably a lot of people at home are making right now.
Yeah, but it is character models, and so what this actually means is that in shooting, most Custodes characters are limited to 2 shots. Most. The Terminator Captain's a little more. Maybe the Bite Captain's like 6 shots with a Hurricane Bolter, but I don't care about it.
Hurricane Bolter.
Couldn't care less.
Yeah.
But that means that in shooting, you genuinely might not get any benefit from this roll against the 1 unit. In combat, 1 Custodes character with +1 to wound on like a 7 attack guy, maybe a 6 attack guy, that's translating like 1 extra successful wound roll. Like the detachment rule is basically, if your character charges the right thing, you get 1 extra wound.
This doesn't even apply to a bike captain because they have lance.
That's
already.
true. That's true. And so the detachment rule is not a great start here. Now we do have the enhancements, and the enhancements are going to feel very familiar. The names are different, but the rules are very similar to the index. So I'll go through them a little bit quickly because we know what they are. Blade Imperator. Each time the bearer's unit ends a charge move, select an enemy unit with engagement range of the bearer, roll a d6 on a 4 up to take d3 mortal wounds, and once per battle, when you complete a charge, you do a 6-inch pulse of enemies must take a battle shock test. Fairly solid, but it was probably the worst of the enhancements from the old attachment.
Yep, that's Unstoppable Destroyer from the
that's
old
Blade
index.
Imperator, Jack.
Sorry,
completely
my bad.
different.
You don't destroy Unstoppable, you Blade Imperator.
Exactly. Then we have Inspirational Exemplar, and this one is the actual same. Bearer has a leadership characteristic of 5+, and once per battle at the start of any phase, pick a battle shocked Custodians unit within 12 and say you're not battle shocked. That's cool. This is a good cheap enhancement before, it still is, no objections there. Veiled Blade. +2 to the attack's characteristic of the bearer's melee weapons. Once per battle at the start of any command phase, boop, triple OC for the guy. This is another pretty good enhancement. Finally, we have Martial Philosopher. This is the old Ceaseless Hunter, which was the best before.
Yes.
And it is exactly the same now.
Still the best now.
So the bearer's unit is eligible to shoot and charge in a turn in which it fell back. Once per battle, when you end a normal advance, fall back within 9 of the bearer. The bearer's unit can make a normal move of up to 6 inches. Another great enhancement. Frankly, several of these are quite good. They're the same as before. They were good then. They're good now.
The only downside to these enhancements that I've seen is they really want you to take units to go with them.
Yes.
And this detachment is really trying its damnedest to incentivize you to spam characters.
Yes. So I think the only one that references a unit is Martial Philosopher, but none of these guys want to not have friends because everyone likes having friends.
Like Leadership and Battle Shock really wants you to have a unit.
That's true.
And then the ability to triple OC, I suppose you don't need it for that one.
Yeah.
But like, if you're taking Ceaseless or Martial Philosopher, whatever, you probably want a unit to go with it. If you're taking Leadership 5, you probably want that on a unit.
Yep.
Like, they get worse if you're taking them on solo characters, and this detachment wants you to take solo characters.
Yes. So we'll get to the stratagems now. First up is Slayer of Champions, which is, you know what, let's just rip the band-aid off. This is an epic deed. All 6 of the stratagems in this detachment are epic deeds. So remember that the detachment rule, and spoiler alert, also the stratagems, are incentivizing you to take characters. There are no battle tactics in this detachment, so if you take shield captain or captains, their battle tactics available are going to be go to ground and CP reroll, which means it's a free CP reroll of a save.
That is an insane oversight way for the detachment to work.
Yeah.
Because this is the army where you're taking 6 to like 8 shield captains or something, and none of them get to use their free strat. That's a travesty of game design.
Yeah, again, this feels like this was written before they knew battle tactics were going to be the only things for free stratagem mechanics, or it just didn't get changed after they decided. Whatever, this is where we're at, so this is what we got to work with.
Yeah, you get 5 free CP rerolls over the course of the game, and that's it. They're all epic deeds. The reason they picked epic deeds is because it's thematic and fluffy.
Yep.
I guarantee you they were like, well, obviously the character detachment, they're all epic deeds because they deed epically.
That's what that means. They're performing epic deeds.
That means your character doesn't get a roll.
Let me read you the first epic deed. Slayer of Champions, 1 CP. 1 Adeptus Custodes character unit from your army. This does target a character unit. This is a good sign. When it destroys the target selected at the start of your command phase for Assemblage of Might. Okay, so when a character unit kills the Assemblage of Might, 1 CP, pick a new enemy unit on the battlefield, and then until the start of your next command phase, each time you attack it with an Adeptus Custodes character model, get +1 wound. So it's just 1 CP, pick a second target after you've killed the first one. Okay. In addition, if the destroyed unit was a character, gain a CP. So if your first target is a character, you kill them with a character unit, not a character model, a character unit, you get a CP back, and so it's basically this is free, you pick a new target. This is perfectly cool as a stratagem by itself, hindered by the fact that Assemblage of Might is not very good.
Yeah, you get to switch targets on, like, again, this is the one where the detachment rule gets a supporting strat where you get to do it multiple times, not the other one.
Yeah.
Like,
such pain.
The detachment rule doesn't exist in this detachment.
Yeah, the stratagem in a vacuum looks cool, thematic, and awesome, but in practice, it is nearly worthless.
Yeah, it's just free, so you will still use it. If you kill a character...
Unless you're planning to discard a card, because I would rather get that CP back than not spend this one and then rob myself of gaining a CP later.
Oh, right, because you spend...
Yeah, you spend and gain, you're not just 0 CPing it. It's spending, gaining. So it's +1, -1, it's not 0.
Oh, so you won't even use this most of the time, even if you do kill a character.
If you have a card to discard, you won't use this.
And you need your CP, because you can't make any strats.
Well, why do you need your CP? Let's see what the other stratagems do.
Oh, no. Oh, John.
2 CP, Superhuman Reserves. Any phase after an Adeptus Custodes Warlord from your army has used an ability on its datasheet or enhancement that says once per battle. 2 CP, that Custodes Warlord model, can use it 1 additional time during the battle, just not in the same phase. This is actually pretty cool.
It's cool. There are so many hoops you have to jump through.
2 CP, Custodes Warlord on a once a game ability or enhancement, get to do it a second time. I think this actually is worth using 2 CP on, and I think you will. It is once per battle.
It is also immediately after you use it the first time. You don't get to just do it again.
Correct.
You have to reload it immediately, which is brutal.
So when you 2 CP, send a Blade Champion on an advance and charge adventure, as soon as you declare you're going to roll the charge, you would spend 2 CP then.
But, like, that is a rough timing for it, my man, because if you're going in with a Blade Champion, then you're probably already using strats then, and then you have to also afford 2 CP on your go turn.
The timing is unfortunate, not going to lie. We'll see what the rest of it gives us.
Also, just a lot of the once-a-game abilities are worse than they were before.
They are, we'll have to look at those data sheets, but yeah.
Yeah.
So, the Emperor's Auspice, 1 CP, epic deed. In your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase after they've selected its target, 1 Adeptus Custodes character unit that was selected as the target, character models in your unit have the Fork Feel No Pain ability.
Oh man, I was so ready for it, you know? I heard character unit and I was like, oh my god, they did it. And then nope, character models get an ability.
This is very useful on a character by himself.
This is it
is.
It is, you will spend the CP on it, I will start with that. But it is niche as hell.
Yes. I wish this was 2 CP, 5 up Feel No Pain for a character unit.
I wish all of these rules referenced unit. If they reference character unit, we're gaming, but they just don't.
Okay. Well, the next stratagem is Earning of a Name, and for 1 CP, it affects 2 Adeptus Custodes character units from your army. However, character models in those units reroll hits and wounds against monsters and vehicles.
Fool me for believing it would be character units
again. For 1
again.
CP, this actually isn't bad. It's 1 CP, 2 Adeptus Custodes character models, essentially, get reroll hits and wounds against monster vehicles. And it's not against a specific monster vehicle, it's just whenever they attack one of the big boys. So you could have 2 characters 30 inches away fighting 2 different rhinos, both get reroll hits and wounds for 1 CP. This is a very good buff for the character. If this was the units, this would probably be a little broken.
Yes.
But I still don't like I'm going, again, I will probably use this because I need my characters to be doing things.
I mean, like, what else is going to do things in this army?
You definitely need to be them. Vigil on Ending, 2 command point, epic deed. This one does target an Adeptus Custodes character model, and it's when they're destroyed, you can use the stratagem even though they just died, and they can fight on death. So it's just 2 CP, fixed fight on death for 1 model.
Ah!
We have seen 2 CP fixed fight on death for units in other books. We have seen 1 CP on a die roll, Feel No Pain for units. Or not Feel No Pain, fight on death for units.
Yeah.
2 CP, 1 model is a little rough.
What?
This could be 1 so easily.
It could be 1 and it would be fine.
If it was 1, I would not use it terribly often, but I'd be happy occasionally.
2 CP, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, 2 CP is 1 wound avatar of Cain killed the last model in my army. Oh god, I have to do something.
Yes. But that's it. That's literally
That's
it.
what you're doing, yeah.
It's a Hail Mary, my opponent has a unit left alive on 1 or 2, and that's it.
And yeah.
Because just, we've seen 1 CP half your unit fights. That's better than this.
2 CP whole unit fights.
Wildly better than this. But 2 CP 1 model fights?
Because
One model!
it has to be when he dies, which the character's the last guy to die usually.
I don't
Right?
understand.
Or he's the last guy to die.
No, this is the worst fight on death in the entire game.
It
and
is.
it is priced into oblivion.
Yeah, 2 CP's rough.
I don't understand it. Like, this could have been a strat that would be half a CP.
Yeah,
And instead it's 2.
that's true. We do have one more, and this is Shoulder the Mantle. 1 CP at the end of your movement phase. 1 Adeptus Custodes character model from your army within 2 inches horizontally and 5 vertically of a friendly unit that it could lead as described in the leader role of its datasheet. That character model attaches to that unit to form an attached unit. Change the unit starting strength accordingly. And the restriction is that your character model cannot attach to a unit that is already an attached unit. The first thing to note is that this almost certainly will receive an FAQ purely from a making it work standpoint, because right now it doesn't say a character that isn't leading a unit. However, obviously if a shield captain attached to 5 wardens walks up to 5 wardens without a character, obviously this does not form a 10 warden unit. That's fake, we know that's not what it's saying. It unfortunately just doesn't actually say that, but I think you can safely assume that the only question really is, does that mean you leave the first unit, join the second, which I don't think is right, or do you have to be by yourself and join a unit without a character, which I think is what they're saying.
One of those 2 is the case, and I'm going to spoil the strat right now and say it doesn't matter.
That's correct.
I don't see a scenario where I would want to use this stratagem.
Nope.
It is pointless.
Yep.
Just take them attached in your list.
Yeah.
The only time I see this as being possibly useful is you have 2 units, each of them have characters. One of them gets the unit shot out from under them, the other one gets the character sniped. Then you put them together.
Yeah, and they also had to be close together and not a mix of Terminators and Captains and Foot guys.
Yeah.
I think really you're going to take more characters than units because all the rules hinge off of characters. So I expect if you play this detachment,
What rules?
You will be using solo characters to try to benefit from the rules that are here.
Which
are like reroll hits and wounds with characters, which is very good. And if you only have a character, it'll feel a little bit better.
it's against monsters and vehicles, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, for feel no pain on just a dude walking alone, there will be cases where that's very good.
Those 2 rules are decent. The rest of this detachment is god awful.
Because it's so hard to snipe out Custodes characters, this is super unlikely to happen because you're never going to take an empty unit.
No.
You're gonna take more characters than units. Yes, if someone manages to precision out a character and you have the right character nearby, you could use this stratagem, I guess, but it's not particularly relevant. It's not gonna come up more than twice in a leap year.
I don't see a reason to have this in the detachment full stop.
No, this isn't unnecessary. Wildly unnecessary.
This detachment is fighting it out with the Sister of Silence detachment to see who's the worst detachment in the game.
I do think it's better.
I think it's slightly better. I don't think it's significantly better.
We'll see with some of the data sheets. And I think it is significantly better, but not good, to be clear. I'm not saying it's good.
No. It's very bad.
It is better than Null Maidens. It is worse than the first 2 detachments, the Shield Host and the Talons of the Emperor, in my opinion. I think there's a very clear power ranking of those 4. Getting solo Custodes characters who can go take down a mid-sized tank by themselves is kind of cool. Getting Custodes characters that can, for Feel No Pain, be very much tougher than they should be is cool because a 1 model unit behind a wall is very hard to engage. But if someone hits your character with the force that they were normally going to put into a Custodes unit, the Fort Feel No Pain is not going to save you.
Yep, you're gonna die anyway.
If someone hits you with a thing that could have dealt with a Custodes unit, well, if you have a Custodes unit, it has no rules until they get to the character. And if you have a character without friends and he popped Fort Feel No Pain, he's like 2 Custodes characters strapped together, which is like 4 Custodian models, which was something they were preparing to kill.
Yes. The detachment rule is shockingly bad.
Yes.
Like, +1 to wound for character models is such a minuscule buff that it does not matter.
They could have done if they're going to keep it to characters, which really, if they'd made this character units, I think this would be perfectly fine, not like great, just like, it would be cool.
It'd be alright.
And then all the stratagems also were more character
Unit, then I could see this being a decent detachment.
then
Nothing crazy.
No, then it's a perfectly playable detachment. As it is, essentially the rule is you get about 1 extra wound when you activate a Custodes character in combat against specifically the guy.
Yep.
And if you put this on a Rhino and you charge a shield captain into it, and he is rerolling hits and wounds, he might be able to knock it down. And then you spend a CP, switch it to a second Rhino, being hit by a second shield captain, you might be able to take it down.
I don't know what the odds are that they take it down. It's not.
Well, one of them is Veiled Blade, hopefully.
That dude probably does get the Rhino.
Probably does.
But it's not even remotely guaranteed to do it.
No, it's not a guarantee. No, it's not.
And that's the only thing your army does?
That, and it sends Custodes characters with a 4-up Feel No Pain and Invuln, ideally one at a time, because this is a battle tactic, into a hard-to-reach spot, and then hopes that they don't die. Like barely touching an objective. Oh, hopefully I only get hit by 1 unit, but also that unit isn't close enough to contest the objective because I'm 1 OC2 dude. It's very hard to kill a Custodes character and shooting with a 4-up Feel No Pain if he's just 1 dude hiding behind a wall.
Listen, comparing the power level of this and the Sister of Silence detachment is like comparing the size of like atoms and subatomic particles. I know one is a lot smaller than the other, but functionally to me they're the same.
Yeah. That is the end of the detachments. So that means that all of these stratagems that you did not see, such as the ones we've mentioned, like Reza Model, fights first, -1 damage, are not being found later, for they are no longer there.
Yeah, they're all gone. Mm-hmm. Those were the strats that Custodes used.
Yep.
And they're just all gone, and they do not have replacements.
There's no obvious, I'll just start using this defensive buff again.
Yep. You either have a detachment where your stratagems are pretty deeply mediocre, or you have one where it's laughable. And that's it.
It very much felt, as an opponent of Custodes sometimes in the last month, that sometimes Custodes just had too many defensive rules up at once. Now it feels like you don't have enough. Now we don't have the points cost yet for these datasheets we're about to cover. We don't have it updated to MFM, but it very much feels like they've lost too many defensive buffs to stay the same cost.
Yeah, we'll cover this at the end, but I don't know what they would have to price some of these datasheets in order to be relevant.
Yeah, we'll see. But let's go into the datasheets.
Well, first up is Trajann, and Trajann in the index is a rock. He is super good.
Yep.
He ignores modifiers, which help his unit crack through basically everything. He can trigger fight first, and he's also a beat stick. So he's really good currently. But in the upcoming book, they basically removed all that. Yeah, so he now ignores modifiers to his unit's ballistic skill, weapon skill, and hit rolls. And that is it. And if you know anything about ignore modifiers, it only really comes into play with ignoring AP damage reduction and occasionally -1s to wound.
Yep, and occasionally a movement buff or an OC buff as well.
A movement buff and OC buff do matter.
Yep.
A lot, actually.
But in this case, hit mods is like the least relevant one you could have kept because Custodes are very good at hitting.
They are. Hit mods don't matter, and weapon skill and ballistic skill mods don't exist.
They're very rare. I can only think of like 2 caps, and they're not that common. And then hit mods, man, sometimes Custodes hit on 3s and it's okay.
Yep, 3 sustained is fine.
Yeah.
That's not what you needed to ignore. That rule functionally went from quite a good rule to a rule that doesn't exist.
Yeah, this is very rare to come up now.
And then the Moment Shackle went from 3 abilities to 2.
Like Katas.
Like Katas, they didn't add anything, just removed. The 2 options that remain are the same, which is he can become 12 attacks, and he can get a 2-up invuln in the fight phase once a game. The one that they removed with no replacement is fight first.
Yep. And I'll mention that Trajan's numbers are identical to the index. We're not going to reread them. He is still a tough Custodes character who hits harder than any other Custodes character. But his rules are significantly dampered now.
Yeah, he is just a beat stick now. He does not have a functional rule that buffs his unit at all. The 2-up invuln in the fight phase does not matter. I've never used it, never even come close to using it. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
So he has 12 attacks once. His other rules don't exist. He is just a beat stick. And for that, they'd have... All right, Shield Captain. So the Shield Captain, his stats are exactly the same. He got a funky melt-a-gun. He got a shield that makes him 7 wounds. He is the same in combat. But other than that, his rules have changed. First off, free strat. There's no -1 damage to free strat anymore, so I don't particularly care. There are only like 2 relevant battle tactics that you can use in the entire army.
Yeah, it's the because the character detachment didn't have any.
None.
You can't use any in the Null Maiden one because they're all anathema only, even though you could take a shield captain theoretically. Then in the friendship, the Talons attachment, you had 2 good ones, which was the +1 wound against below strength, and then the move back. Those are quite good battle tactics.
Those are good battle tactics.
And the last, so there are only 3 battle tactics you can use in 4 detachments. There are 3 battle tactics that can be used by a shield captain.
And one of them, the 4 Feel No Pain against mortal wounds, is not great.
I will use it because it's free,
and it's the only one you can use free.
and I have to take a shield captain to take the enhancement. That's what I'm using.
So the free strat became like so much less valuable, like just to a ludicrous degree less valuable.
I completely agree.
And his Master of the Stances ability went from every turn his unit picks an extra kata to once a game you got all 3 to once per game you get both. And so that means
other than a once per game ability, and then in a specific attachment, which is probably the one you're playing to be fair, the shield captain no longer buffs the unit to much of an extent at all.
Yeah. So again, that's 2 character data sheets in a row where the reason you wanted to take them got gutted, removed with no replacement.
Yep.
Carry on. Shield Captain Allarus Terminator armor is exactly the same, except obviously the free strat now does not matter.
Yep.
And his defensive ability went from Fight on Death.
Fight on Death, yeah.
It went from Fight on Death, which not the biggest deal, to once per battle. The start of a phase, you can turn all damage to incoming to 1 until the end of the phase.
That rule doesn't matter much if he's with friends. For what it's worth, in the efforts of polishing the Auric Champion's detachment, which is going to be difficult to do, but if I were to try, because it honestly does look fun to play, even though I expect I'll stop having fun shortly afterwards.
About turn 2, I think.
I think I can make it to 3. If that character does just go by himself and say, hey, everything's flat 1 damage, and he's either +2 wounds because he was in a detachment where he could get that enhancement, or he is Feel No Pain because he's in a detachment where he could spend that guy does become pretty hard to kill.
Not impossible.
Pretty hard.
But tough.
That's pretty hard.
Pretty tough.
Everything is damage 1 Fort, Invuln Fort, Feel No Pain is going to take a monstrous amount of effort to kill.
That is true. To be fair, though, this is after an enemy unit selected its target, you get the Fort, Feel No Pain.
Yes.
So if they throw a grenade and tank shock you, you die like anyone else.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay,
there are problems
just
there.
wanted to be clear.
But that's what you could use. The Shield Captain Terminator armor is probably the best one to walk alone if you're doing a solo character thing, because some of the detachments kind of want you to do. So we've got the Blade Champion up next, previous staple. All of his numbers are the same. So his combat weapons, his stats, he is still the same dude. His rules, however, have changed. First up, Swift Onslaught is when you're leading a unit, you can reroll charge rolls for the unit. So they lost reroll advances. That is fairly annoying because a speculative free reroll of an advance was something you very rarely wanted to command point, but very often liked having for free.
Yep, I would use the reroll advance constantly.
Yep.
Just all the damn time.
And then Martial Inspiration, which is once we're battling your charge phase, the model's unit is eligible to declare a charge even though it advanced. This is still very good, but it does miss out the sentence where it used to give a 0 command point heroic intervention, a thing that was very useful for setting up good golly, it's hard to charge Custodes.
Oh, now it's super easy to charge Custodians.
Yeah, you just
That's
walk up
not
and
really a thing.
roll 2 dice like everyone else.
Yeah, you just do it and then they die. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely the best character, and it's the only one that has rules I care about.
Yeah.
But, like, it kind of sucks that they just removed rules with no replacement.
Yeah, of the trifecta of foot characters of Shield Captain, Blade Champion, Trajann, All of them took changes. None of them are happy with the changes, and the Blade Champion definitely feels like the best afterwards. But like, man, best while getting worse does not feel. Next up we have Valerion. Valerion's numbers are the same, as you'd expect with a lot of these characters. He still gives -1 AP to melee attacks, which is the same as before, but now his Hero of Lion's Gate ability is a once per battle after making a hit roll, wound roll, or saving throw, you can change the result of that roll to non-modified 6. He used to have a reroll once per turn,
Yes.
and a once a game flip to 6.
He did. They just removed that.
So he kept the once a game, lost the once per turn, which means he lost 5/6 of the time he was going to use this rule. Yeah. Valerion is still functionally doing the same things before, it just feels a little bad.
You're taking him.
You might, yeah, you really might, because you might just need a little extra melee defense now.
I mean, I have to say, I hope that they drop the points catastrophically on these units.
Definitely would hope for something on
If
that.
the Shield Captain's still 140, Blade Champ's still 120, Trajan's still 160, 165 or whatever,
Yeah.
that's bad, man.
So that's basically it for the Custodians characters. We can go through all these Sisters of Silence stuff. Just to reiterate, the only change for the Sisters of Silence units broadly is going to be that their 3-up Feel No Pain against Psychic also applies to Mortals. Now we get to the Knight Centurion, we have a very small change that we will see patterned later, which is that the Executioner Greatblade, which is a 3-attack weapon skill 2, 5/2/2 weapon, is now Anti-Psyker 5+ devastating wounds, whereas in the Index it was Anti-Psyker 4+ dev wounds.
Yeah, I don't understand why they changed this. This also applies to Alea as well.
Yep.
I don't get it. Were Vigilators into Psychers too big of a... Maybe they worried they overbuffed them with the Sister of Silence attachment? And it wasn't fair if your opponent was a Psyker? I could honestly see that being the reason, to be clear. Like they're worried,
unclear.
They're worried that you're too good into Psychers? I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, actually, I think something we might have forgotten. Did you talk about the spear in the Shield Captain? Mm-hmm. Okay, never mind.
He gets a funky Melt-A Spear.
Melt-A-Gun. Okay, cool.
It's a Melt-A-Gun. The combat's the same.
Yeah. So Alea, same thing. She's Anti-Psyker 5+, no other changes other than all the Sisters changes we've seen. Custodian Guard. This data sheet is completely identical. This was a great data sheet before. You do have less good rules to put on it than before, but the Custodian Guard I still expect to factor into Custodians lists.
Probably.
Custodians Wardens. I don't know if... Did we mention the Axe change?
No, we did not.
So, the Castellan Axe used to be weapon skill 3. Now it is weapon skill 2 in all forms. This is on Terminators, this is on Captains, this is on Wardens. It is weapon skill 2 instead of 3. This means it is, just to give the new stats as for anyone who has forgotten, like myself, it is 4 attacks, weapon skill 2, strength 9, AP 1, damage 3. So it's 1 less attack, 1 less AP than a Guardian Spear, but is +2 strength, +1 damage. Net, I think the AP is too important to give up.
And the attack, too.
Yeah, you could make an argument for the Castellan Axe in the +1 AP detachment, but because that's only one battle round a game, you can't flex into it. It feels like the breakpoint of only being AP 1 is too harsh to give up.
Yeah, you would think that this would be good against things like Terminators because you're 3 damage, but if they armor Contempt, they're taking 2-ups.
Yeah,
they'll just bounce your
which
whole,
is
your whole
untenable.
Yeah.
So I think it is more of a conversation than before, but it is not a particularly long one. You still want spears in basically every instance, as far as I can tell.
As far as I can tell, yeah. I think they would
Yeah.
need to give them 5 attacks or be AP2, but with 1 less attack.
Until we see a demon meta, I think we're just on spears.
That's coming any day now.
Any day now.
Any day now.
Okay, other than that, Wardens are identical. They still have the identical Feel No Pain ability and an identical -1 to wound when their strength is greater than toughness of the attack. Cool. The Allarus Custodians are exactly the same as before. No discernible changes at all. Unit sizes do in fact match the current index, not the pre-published index for all of this, just to be clear. This is a good data sheet that was probably just a little worse than Wardens and Guard. I expect that to be the same. They receive the same lack of buffs that all of those do. The Allarus have the notable exception of shooting harder than the Wardens and Guard usually do. That's not a particularly exciting distinction because it's not by some incredible margin, but if you really wanted to use some of the shooting buffs they saw fit to give Custodians, you could argue for Allarus, but bluntly, I don't think it matters much.
Nope. Unless they, this will be a theme, right?
Yep.
Unless they drop points dramatically on these units, you're probably not going to take them because they're just a little bit too expensive.
And I'll just summarize the next three. Virtus Praetors, Venerable Contemptors, Land Raider. These are all identical to the index. There are no changes we can spot at all. Rules the same. Everything's the same. None of these units featured commonly in competitive armies with Custodians. I see no particular reason to take them. I don't see any that got some strange new buff.
Nope. There's no real reason to run those outside of the axe, which, by the way, is not a buff because you're not going to take it, so it doesn't actually change the numbers. You're better with the spears. Is there a single positive change to any of the Custodians units?
Other than the Sisters of Silence.
Custodians, yeah,
not really.
Nope.
I have terrible news. When I looked at the Virtus Praetor datasheet, it reminded me that there was a change to the Virtus Praetor captain.
Give it to me straight,
I'm going to scroll up to it just so I can read it. So the Virtus Praetor had that once a game the captain had that normal move at the end of the fight phase. However, it currently is once per battle at the end of the fight phase, if this model's unit has fought this phase, then it can make a fallback or normal move.
Alright, so the Virtus Praetor in the index, it was like a laughably bad unit. Its stats are so out of line with its price and other comparable units that you just never saw these ever. The only reason you might possibly think about bringing them to a game is because you combine them with a captain, and at the end of your opponent's fight phase, they move. It's once a game, but it is a strong rule. Now, it doesn't make these useless data sheets like good or anything, but it was a strong rule, and they have made that gone. It's gone.
I was considering a shield captain and some Virtus Praetors in the critical 5s, the shield host, because if you give that unit sustained 5s plus 1 AP, by golly does it make the most out of its one turn.
Yeah,
it would hit very hard.
You can take a couple units and guarantee you get to jump your opponent with them.
Rapid Ingress of Virtus Praetor into a soft spot, be faster than a foot guy, and zip around a corner and charge someone and go.
But now it doesn't work.
That doesn't work.
Okay, so they gutted the reason you would take that character too.
Correct. We now hit the 3 Sisters of Silence datasheets. Prosecutors are unchanged other than that they've lost battle line, but they are otherwise identical. And then they have the Sisters of Silence mortal defense that all of them have. Vigilators, the Anti-Psyker 5+ change that we've already mentioned, is a small nerf there, but like, why? And then finally, Witch Seekers, which, you know what, we did not mention this previously. They are unchanged, but their rule is in the shooting phase when you shoot something, it has to take a battle shock test, which has the theoretical potential to unlock some rules. So if you, wanted to take a 5 and a 10 strong Witch Seeker, you could have 5 of them rock up, try to get an Orc unit to fail a battle shock test when it flames them, and if they fail, then you get 1 CP plus 20 shots on the 10 strong Witch Seeker, or 3 5-strong Witch Seekers keep tapping something until it fails a battle shock test, at which point you run in with reroll wound on your Vigilators into a non-psyker.
I'm so happy to use Orcs as an example, because that might be an army that actually fails battle shocks.
And we also see them a lot.
We'll have that comparison at the end of this video.
The final data sheet is the Anathema Psychena Null Rhino, which has literally no changes from the updated index, because in the index I think they had to add firing deck too. It has it. It is a Rhino with Sisters of Silence rules.
I mean, which is good. 3 up against mortal wounds and psych attacks on a Rhino is solid. It also triggers all of the friendship detachments rules, which is dope.
It is the best Rhino in the game.
It's the best Rhino in the game. It's still a Rhino, so like that doesn't matter, but it is pretty good Rhino.
Yep. That is the end of the match play rules. We're not going to be covering Crusade rules in this review. There are points printed. I bluntly haven't read them because we have done this enough times that I've known that reading the points in the back of the codex have zero relevance to what's going to end up being the official points.
Yep. This was made a while ago, so the points are just completely out of date.
And because there's no new data sheets, it's not like it can give us an inclination of what the new data sheet's going to be costed, which it could occasionally be useful for with things like the Inner Circle for Dark Angels.
Yeah.
So, well, that's everything.
I will say, every time I read this book, it starts to hurt a little later in the reading.
Yep.
This time, it only really started to hurt right at the end.
Yep.
Last time I read it, it really started to hurt halfway through, and the first time I read it, it was the time I realized, oh wait, there aren't rules in this book.
Yeah, you can come up with a play style to play 3 of these detachments and kind of justify it to yourself. The Null Maiden one, I genuinely cannot see other than your buddy plays Thousand Suns and you and he are going to crack open a cold one while you're playing in your garage on a Friday afternoon, and you say, hey, wouldn't it be funny if let's see how it goes.
To be clear, they will still win that game.
Yeah, they should.
Yeah.
More often than not.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Maybe you even win. Who knows?
I don't know about that, but you might.
Yeah, might.
Anyways, yeah. The other three detachments, the ones that actually encourage you to take some amount of golden units, all of them feel a little underwhelming in different ways, some more than others, but none of them are overwhelming.
None of them are even whelming.
None of them are. I think Talons is whelming. That's the highest praise I got.
Possibly.
Yeah.
We came to a conclusion, the two of us, that this is the worst codex we have seen in the last 5 years.
Yeah. What kills me the most is that it feels like any amount of flavor in this book, and there's not that much, is gatekept by multiple hoops, and in almost every case, more than were needed.
No.
You could take a hoop off of 80 to 90% of the rules in here, because one, they all have like 2 hoops, and it would still just be fine.
It wouldn't even be like good,
Wouldn't even be crazy.
No, it wouldn't be. Like, they're gatekeeping mediocre rules behind hoops. What are we doing here? Yeah.
It very much feels like this codex, to me, reads like it was written in, give or take, July or August of 23, at a point where Custodians were noticeably too good.
And they were like, let's just go through with pruning shears
let's
and just lop off anything.
And it didn't look like they knew what to add.
Well, because they didn't add
much
anything.
Yeah, a lot of the additional rules, because there are 4 times as many stratagems, but like, man, I cannot, as a sometimes not Custodians player, for I play other armies more often than I play Custodians, I cannot think of 3 stratagems that I'm like really worried about. Like, I'm gonna remember that if I get within 9, you move.
That's about it.
I'm gonna remember the reroll hits and wounds with 2 characters.
I suppose. Fall back and charge and 2 detachments.
And I'm going to remember you can fall back and charge. I think the rest of it is just like you're going to use the stratagem at some point and be like, right, that's there. Okay, well,
all right, yeah, sure, pop off king.
Yeah, like, oh, did you want to change? No, not really. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, it's, listen.
It's underwhelming.
Within the last month, I went to a tournament in the Netherlands with Custodians. I painted up a fresh new 2,000 points of the army. Already have about 1,500 points, maybe 1,000 points painted before that. So all told, I have a pretty decently sized Custodians army. I'm not a big hobbyist, so this was a big deal for me. And then we got this. It doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good, and it's not great. There just isn't much to do. They took out any of the reason to run any of the characters other than the Blade Champion. They still cut his rules. They basically gutted the good strats. If they had just left the index how they had found it, it would have been fine. But they didn't. They removed everything that made the index good, didn't add anything new to it, and said, here you go.
Yeah. What I think is the most noticeable is that Custodians were definitely like Terminator Profile Plus, where you could add so many rules of them that their defense transcended their stat line, and I think that was a bit ridiculous. However, it feels to me like they have gone too far in the other direction, where now there is not enough defense you can put on a Custodian model. Because it's not fun when you literally cannot interact with the Custodian's army, and that shouldn't be a game mechanic. That's fine. There was a lot of room in between where we were and where we are, and somewhere in the middle would have been appreciated. But as it is, there's very little this book can do about someone shoots you with a meltagun.
There's almost nothing they can do about someone walks up to you and charges you.
You need to roll 4 up envolds. Which, yeah, if you pass your 4 up envolds, great, but there's so little depth behind that defensively that I worry that the army is going to be cost too high to be relevant, because if you just don't have any defense behind a bad turn of 4 up envolds, like there's no stratagems to make that better.
You just lose a unit.
You could just lose a unit, and then you're just down too many units too fast, and it cascades.
Like, I played Custodians, right, recently, and I will tell you, they're very durable. They were. They were very durable.
Yeah.
But they weren't, you had to you had to have your buffs up.
Yes.
If you didn't have your buffs up, you could lose units like that.
Faster than you think.
Faster than you think. And now there are no buffs to give. And that your opponent, your World Leader's opponent, just walks up to you, charges you, applies a ton of damage directly to your forehead, and there is nothing you can do about it. There's just nothing you can do. You just take those 4-ups.
I think you're still looking at using Warden, like the same data sheets, because the unit data sheets changed very minimally. I could see you trying to make Blade Host work by doing a bunch of like hard-hitting units, rapid ingressing between Venatari and that to get your one turn be as cool as possible. Once that turn is over, I worry that you are just standing there with some Terminators that don't have armor contempt.
Yep, you're just going to get gutted.
Yep, that most armies will be able to do that. But I think for the competitive viability of this army, this is a very significant change.
Oh yeah, big time. There's also a lot of the army where it's like, all right, maybe my opponent has indirect or they have inceptors or whatever. My game plan is I'm going to try and tank it with -1 damage, for feel no pain, what have you. And now a unit of inceptors deep striking down with plasma could just wipe a squad.
Yeah, that's an existential threat.
It's an existential threat, and now there is no answer to it, period. Before it was -1 damage, roll some saves, regen a model, which doesn't exist also. Healing model also gone, for the record. And now you just have to take it. And if you roll insane 4-ups, you'll be fine. But if you roll above average 4-ups, you're dead.
The stat lines of Custodes are good enough that I think you can take this codex and still win games. But Custodes currently, in the index, are probably a top 5 army in the game. They're quite good. They have been winning events. I think those days are going to be a lot less common now. I think this is going to need a buff at some point. We'll see what kind of buff it needs. We'll see what the MFM points are when it comes out. But the rules they took were too many, and the rules they gave back too few, and there are too many hoops in the middle of it.
I think Custodes went from a top 5 to a bottom 5 army.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
I would agree.
And I don't know the points they would need to put out to make this army competitive, but it would have to be something ridiculous.
Golden Horde would be crazy, but that's not what Custodes should be.
No, it's not what they should be, but if they don't change these rules, it's what they have to be.
Yeah.
Like, they'd have to be like 30-point Custodian Guard.
I just don't want to see that.
Nobody wants to see that.
Nope. Even Custodes players don't want to see that.
No, they want their cool units being elite warriors. You do not have that in this book. Your units don't do a lot of damage, don't survive particularly well, and are not fast.
They still do damage.
They do damage.
They still do damage.
But there's no way to elevate that. Other armies can have their mid-strength units hit like Custodes. Custodes don't have a way to elevate their damage.
Yeah, you have to be in one of the detachments that then leaves you exposed in a different manner.
Yes.
Which is obviously brings its own.
Can we talk about orcs for a second?
This review is being released at the same time as our orc review. Go check that out.
Yep.
If you haven't already seen the orc review, you happen to be watching this one first, they are different books.
They are very different books.
They are different books.
Orcs it might be too good. It very well might be. I would say it's probably too good.
That's my opinion as well, is that I think the Orc Codex, from a balance perspective, because I think from a balance perspective, Custodes is going to be firmly below average now.
Yes.
We'll see how much. We still have to play games. Sometimes things are not as obvious in practice as they are in paper. But Custodes look firmly below average, and Orcs look firmly above average. Like, on paper, Orcs look like the best army in the game, if I'm being really honest here.
Orcs, yeah, to me they do, with multiple builds as well. They have 6 detachments. Even the worst of those is solid.
Yeah.
Even the worst one is solid, and every detachment is dripping in flavor, cool abilities, fun things you can do with your army, and it is almost certainly going to need some amounts of balance passes on it, for sure.
Yep, I expect that from
I expect that too. But what you have is a codex that is awesome, right? Even people who are anticipating playing into it, not with it, are like, damn, those detachments really make you feel like you are whatever the heck you feel like. Green Tide does Green Tide to a T, right?
Speed Freaks.
Speed Freaks is speed freaky with it. Like
random mech dreadnoughts do feel random dread mech things.
Yeah, they're just dripping in flavor and cool rules, and maybe they went a tad overboard and that will be fixed.
Yes.
That's not what this is.
No.
There is not a drop of flavor in this book.
And if there is, there are 3 hoops to get there.
And I don't see... you said this to me the other day. There's not an Orc player alive who's going to be sad with their book. And I don't see a Custodes player that's going to be happy with this one.
Yeah. And it's on the first read, that's a little unfortunate. As much as I like to make jokes, where I'm a notorious Eldar hater.
You're a jokester.
I'm a jokester. I like to make jokes like, man, I hope Eldar get removed from the games. I don't actually want Eldar or Tau or Death Guard or the armies I don't play to just get handed boring, lifeless rules. I don't want that for Custodes either. Now, I'm hoping that there is more life here than it looks on an initial read. We have occasionally been wrong on that in the past. I'm not gonna lie, on the first read, I'm not sure of what direction is best to go. But when we got the Dark Angel Codex, I was pretty down on it, and it ended up being better than I thought. Wasn't insane, but it was better than the first read would have suggested. It's possible that we'll be in the same boat here. I don't see it yet, but sometimes sitting on things, getting the comparison of old out of the mind lets you find things that weren't obvious the first time, but I don't see it yet.
I also don't see it. Now, you can be sure that I will, I'm going to try.
Absolutely.
Like, I'm going to put it on the table. I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to try and figure out combos and cool things to do. So if it's there, I'll find it. But I don't see it right now. And, I mean, yeah, it's just unfortunate. The worst... Well, not the worst, but one of the worst parts of an online community, or sometimes how codexes are released to the Warhammer community, is the schadenfreude that people get when other people are in pain. Like, oh, I'm so happy X's rules suck, or they got nerfed because those players are crying.
That usually happens after an army's broken and we're all frustrated with Wraith Knights and Wraith Guard and Avatars.
It does happen, but it also happens to a lot of different armies.
It does.
And you just gotta remember that yes, you might not have enjoyed playing into the army before, for whatever reason. I personally find Guard and Tau to be less enjoyable to play into than Custodes, but that is my personal play style, not necessarily yours. But keep in mind there are real people who have painted these armies, who are very passionate about these armies, and who just watched it get cut in half.
Yeah. So, that's the book.
That's the book.
What we've got for the future, though, is at the moment, we're recording this right after we got the rules. We have not played any games with it yet. But by the time this is going live, we will have played games with them. Not only that, but some of those games we have played will be live on our channel. So if you're watching this, one, make sure you like the video, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel. Let us know in the comment section what you think. As well, feel free to check out the Orc video that we also released today. Now, in addition to that, we are going to have games for both the Orc Codex and the Custodes Codex on our channel. So if you want to see what Jack's first crack is like, see what we have been able to find, stay tuned. We're going to have not only the game that's up today, we're going to have a lot more Custodes and Orcs games coming in the next couple weeks, and a lot of content for both of these new codexes. You can find all of that in the War Room. So if you want to become a member of the War Room, you want to check out a game with each of these codexes right now, today, go watch it. Check out YouTube, become a gold member, or go to the link in the description below. thewarroom.vhx.tv is how you get a free trial to the War Room. You get a free 3-day trial if you just want to check that out, see what we're all about. Or it's how you can just sign up for our services, get access to all of our amazing Warhammer 40,000 content, and it'll even give you access to our iOS and Android app where you can watch all of these things on your phone as well. You can download it for a flight, you can watch it with the screen closed, get all of our amazing content. So as much as this is painful, if there's something to find, I have full confidence Jack's the man to do it, and we'll see if we're able to find stuff in the upcoming games of this book. But I think that's going to close us out for today. So again, please like, share with your friends, leave a comment, let us know. But most of all, we appreciate you watching this video. Thank you so much. We'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.